Stan Jabalisco here, operator of ham radio station W1GV, Whiskey 1 Golf Victor. Right now we are in my ham radio shack, actually the basement. I call it the Nerd Cave. A lot of equipment down here. The heart of the ham radio station is the IC746 Pro, tuned right now to W1AW, code practice session going on. I just tested myself on code practice a few minutes ago, a couple hours ago actually, on their 20 word a minute practice session, just to see if I could still copy a solid minute of 20 words a minute code like I had to do to get my extra class license back in the 1970s. They were pretty strict about that back then. Had to copy a solid minute perfect and send a solid minute perfect at 20 words a minute. There's my telescope, which you can't see much down here in the Nerd Cave, the basement. But anyway, I can still copy 20 words a minute. I was kind of surprised, but I sort of feel obligated to maintain that skill. Just sort of a little bit of a moral obligation to the gods of the Morse code. Let the viewer understand. That is my ham radio shack computer, 2 monitors. My pride and joy 46-inch Sony Bravia television set. That's just a program called HamScope, which is showing kind of like a spectral analysis of the audio coming out of that radio. Standing wave ratio meter. Everybody needs one of those, I guess, eh? Well, the purpose of this video is to expound on my emergency power system. Now, I have a notebook computer, shows the stars in the sky. Right at this moment, from Rapid City, South Dakota, that is my QTH, actually Lead, South Dakota, LEAD, in the heart of the Black Hills, Dakota Territory, United States of America. There's another computer that I use to make some of my videos on. That wallpaper came from Great Images in NASA. So did this wallpaper. That is supposedly dark matter there. I don't know, how dark is it? But down here you see a hacked, uninterruptible power supply. Now, I read in correspondence a piece by someone who had hacked an uninterruptible power supply like this. Down there, if you can see them, I've got a flashlight on them. 2 automotive 12-volt batteries in series to supply 24 volts, which this supply needs. Actually, it wants 26.5 volts. So this uninterruptible power supply presumably will maintain the power to this radio if the power goes off, this whole radio shack, for some time. That is the idea in that little piece. It wasn't in correspondence. It was an actual article in QST about emergency power and an uninterruptible power supply. It didn't specify, as I recall, what kind of batteries were used. In retrospect, I wish those were not automotive, but marine batteries that would be more of a deep cycle intended for this application. Automotive batteries are intended for delivering a lot of current for a very short time, but not so much for delivering a moderate amount of current for a long period of time. Although they will suffice for my needs here. Now that, I don't know if you can see that, it's a fan, oscillating fan that blows over those batteries. Those batteries are sitting in glass trays with baking soda in the bottom. So in case they leak acid, won't wreck my floor, and the baking soda will kind of help to neutralize that acid. All of this equipment here that you see is connected to that uninterruptible power supply. So if the power goes out, I've tested it just today, and it will maintain power, but only at 97 volts because of the slightly lower voltage of the automotive batteries. That article seemed to leave out a few things. This is not an entirely safe arrangement here unless you take very careful precautions with these automotive batteries. Not only can they leak acid, but they can also outgas hydrogen. And you don't want hydrogen accumulating in the vicinity of these batteries. In case there's a spark, you can probably guess that wouldn't be a very good thing. That's what that fan is for, to disperse that hydrogen if it in fact does outgas. But all this equipment, but I don't know how long it'll power. There's a sign that tells me where I'm at in case I forget. A little bit of a breadboard for some experiments, for some videos I'm doing. And now, this is what I do in the event of a power failure. You can see I'm walking out here. I just tested it today. A Honda generator. It's a EU2000i. Supply a little over a kilowatt. It'll run for several hours on one little tank of gasoline, and I've got spare gasoline tanks in the garage. I have that thing sitting here in my laundry room, which I use twice a year, whether I need to or not. Every 6 months, do my laundry whether it needs it or not. But that is the generator right there. And what I do in the event of a power failure is that uninterruptible power supply goes on, and then I keep that going until I can get this generator hooked up. Then I switch over to the generator. The generator will power not only the Nerd Cave apparatus, the ham radio station, but the furnace fan. And in fact, the whole furnace, all of its electronics, everything. There's the hookup that I switch over to, an isolation box and everything that I switch over. That little bulb there is an LED light bulb, so at least I can see down here during a power failure. I have tested all this, and it actually does work. Now, what I do in the event of a power failure, you can see I'm going outside into the woodshed. Here's another thing that I can use for heat in case of a long-term power failure. I think we're going to have an epic winter here in the Black Hills of Dakota Territory. And I'm getting ready. I've got my vehicle ready. I've got everything getting ready for it, even though it's still only August right now. There are a couple of extension cords, plugs on the end. Now I put the generator right out here, right out in the driveway. $1 million view from up here. Good shot to South America too. All 10 big ones in my station, 10 big watts. Work South America pretty easy with the antenna I've got on the deck. There's where I put the generator, and I set it so the exhaust blows out that way. I learned that lesson after having run this generator in the woodshed right here and having the carbon monoxide detector in the house go off. There are a lot of little things, but you kind of learn these things by trial and error. Yeah, but it's better to make your errors before they cost you much. Like, for example, burning your house down. Now, as for this hack, there's those batteries down there again. As for that uninterruptible power supply hack, there's some things that questions you have to ask, and I really don't know the answer. The inverter in that power supply is designed to supply 1,000 volt amperes. That's the rating in this supply, and that's probably just barely enough originally to run this stuff for maybe 5 minutes. But is that inverter really designed to operate for hours and hours and hours, even at a lower load? I mean, it's designed to operate for a few minutes, but is it designed to operate for hours and hours? And the answer is, I don't know. Another thing, the charger in that uninterruptible power supply, which you see with that little green light right there, it's an APC. That charger was designed to keep the battery supplied with the uninterruptible power supply charged properly. Will it do the same with these automotive batteries? And the answer is, again, I don't know. And I wonder if the author of the article knows. These are questions you have to ask. Now, I have not actually tested this to see whether it would run my radio for an hour or two, because I have that generator out there, and with the extra gas and a siphon that I can use to siphon gas out of my vehicle if I need it for even longer, I figure I can run this nerd cave down here for pretty close to a solid week without power. And I wouldn't, of course, run it continuously for a solid week. I'd run it intermittently and to maintain heat. And one of the neat things about this low-tech solution would heat in the basement when it's 25 degrees below zero outside, which is about as cold as it ever gets here in the Black Hills of Dakota Territory, the United States of America. When it is 25 below zero outside, and I run that wood stove in the nerd cave. You didn't see that, did you? I can heat this whole house up to 70 degrees without even having to have the furnace going at all. And with the furnace fan going, only the fan only, not the furnace itself. There is that low-tech solution. Low-tech. Let's hear it for low-tech. Well, this is a little more high-tech here. My favorite modes, by the way, are CW and PSK. You will find me not very often, but on the air occasionally on 20 meters, and also on 18 megahertz, 17 meters mostly, from time to time, from the Black Hills, even though my call sign again is W1GV, Whiskey 1, Golf Victor, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Drop that once at 15 words a minute into a pileup. People hear it. Seems to register in their brain. That's why I got this call sign back in the 1970s when I actually worked. That station you hear, W1AW. So with that, I will sign off, say 73, and hope that you got a little something out of this lecture about hacking uninterruptible power supplies. Sounds kind of cool and simple on the face of it, but there's some questions you got to ask and precautions you got to take before you try something like that. Stan Jabalisco, so long.